This is the world's first f1.8 zoom lens for full frame cameras, the Sigma 28-45mm f1.8. It comes in E-mount or L-mount versions, has modern features like a declickable iris ring and 2 custom buttons, much improved autofocus, and weighs in at 950 grams. But of course the main reason that people will be buying this is that constant f1.8 aperture. In many ways, this lens is a spiritual successor to this, Sigma's most popular and well-regarded lens ever really, the 18-35mm f1.8. Believe it or not, this lens is 11 years old now, but it still stands up as one of the only f1.8 zooms on the market, and it has been hugely popular because of this. And now, 11 years on, this 28-45mm, it's effectively a full-frame version of that lens. And the key to understanding this lens is basically the same as it was with the 18-35. If you're looking for a standard all-purpose zoom lens with a faster aperture than that standard f2.8, I kind of think you're going to be disappointed by either of these lenses. That's not what these are. They're much heavier than the average 24-70, for example, and obviously the focal lengths are far too limiting to be an all-purpose lens for most kinds of work. And yet the 18-35mm has been consistently one of Sigma's best-selling lenses for many, many years. And I'd expect this 28-45mm to be similar. Those people that really love these lenses aren't using them as standard zooms. They're using them more like variable primes, if you like, if that makes sense. So let's pick that apart a little bit and focus on this, the new one. So this is a 28-45mm f1.8. Not wide enough and not quite long enough to be a standard zoom. In fact, when you first look at it, it can be quite a strange set of focal lengths, really. But if you think about this instead as 3 prime lenses in one, a 28mm f1.8, a 35mm f1.8, and a 45mm f1.8, it makes a lot more sense. All 3 of those focal lengths are widely used. In fact, I asked my colleague Patrick what his favourite prime lens was when he's working. He makes music videos, and he said 35mm. Mine is 45mm. I use it much like a standard 50mm, but it's that little bit wider, which I just find a bit more practical and a bit more appealing. So that's both mine and Patrick's favourite focal lengths to work with when using prime lenses, all wrapped up in the same lens. And that's the appeal of this lens. It's not going to be for every kind of work, but there will be some where this is hugely useful. I'd used something like this in these kinds of videos for a huge amount, for example. It's just a shame they don't make it in RF mount, so I can't use it with our Canon cameras. But if I used Sony or Panasonic, this would be a perfect lens for this kind of work. So let's take a look at the image quality with our normal interview style setup with the fairy lights in the background to show off that f1.8 bokeh. So this is 28mm, which is very wide for a shot like this, and it looks great. Clear separation with the background, nice clean round bokeh, and very sharp and detailed. This continues as we go into 35mm, and even more so at 45mm. I really like the way this lens looks here. Lovely clean bokeh with a slight curve to it as we get towards the edges, but no cutting or anything nasty. Let's now focus on the out of focus bokeh by itself across the whole frame. This is 45mm, and just look at how clean it is. You can really see that nice even rugby ball shaped curving to the bokeh at the edges here, which I think just looks beautiful. At 28mm it's still nice and clean, but we do now have some cutting as we get to the edges, which you would expect at the wider end of a zoom. Overall though, it still looks very nice and clean. Now let's turn to the bookcase and have a look at sharpness, which is very impressive as well. This is a nice detailed lens, even wide open. The difference in detail between f5.6 and wide open is minimal, both at 28mm and 45, and both in the centre and the edges as well. There's definitely some vignetting though, but this was filmed on the Sony Burano in XOCN RAW, so there would not have been any lens corrections going on to counteract that. Another area of these tests that would have been helped by those lens corrections in camera is distortion. This is our parfocal lens test, and as we zoom, the first thing we noticed was the distortion. It goes from barrel to pincushion as we zoom. Now, in-camera correction would definitely help this, but without it, it's definitely there. I also wouldn't say that this is a parfocal lens either. The focus isn't too far off once you've actually zoomed in or out, but it does have that noticeable shimmer while zooming, which autofocus lenses tend to do. Talking of autofocus, performance here seems to be just the same as most other modern Sigma lenses. Perfectly reliable and accurate. I imagine not as fast once you really push it compared to Sony G Master lenses, but definitely more than capable of most professional stills or video work. Overall, I think this is a pretty impressive lens, but the question is, will it capture people's imaginations in the same way that that good old 18-35 did all those years ago? Well, it's a very different market now. There's a huge amount more lenses to choose from, including many more affordable fast primes. And this is twice the price of the 18-35, so it's never going to be as accessible as that lens was. But it's an f1.8 zoom that covers full frame, and that hasn't existed so far. It's beautiful quality, nice and detailed with very appealing bokeh, and of course that's what those people who want a fast f1.8 lens in a zoom care about. So I do think this stands a really good chance. This is a lovely lens to use, and personally, I do think it captures some of that same magic that the 18-35 has done for so many years. But what do you think? Let us know in the comment section, and if you want to buy one, then head over to proev.co.uk. Thanks for watching, I'll see you in the next one.